Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. How's it going, Eric?
It's going. I'm very sleep deprived and over caffeinated, so it's like this weird superposition of my body being physically alert, but my brain being mentally tired. You know, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling where you're like super over caffeinated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at right now. I ground my own coffee this morning, so it's like extra strong. So it's like I'm seeing into the future, yo. So if I'm like a little weirder than normal, that's because I'm like way over caffeinated right now. I need to stop.
Yep. Let's drink some sparkling water.
Yeah. But apart from that, doing pretty good. Other than the kiddo night terrors, we're working through that. Doing pretty good. I've got a really cool extension to the Excalibur browser tools where we can debug the shader materials like live.
Ooh.
So you get like syntax highlighting. You get to see all of the textures that are loaded in. You get to see all of the built-in like shader parameters that Excalibur injects into it. And then you can mess with any of the ones that you provide as a game developer. So I am so excited to merge that. I'm like this close to merging it. It's dope. I'm loving it. Like,
nice. That's
and
really
you can
cool.
tell that I'm super Balatro pilled on the Discord because I'm like showing the polychrome, like my version of polychrome in there. And I was like, this is awesome.
That's cool. Well, I have been off the computer. Well, not really, but like my new course is out. So I finished that this last week.
Nice.
So that's the React 19 security and safety course. So I show you how a supply chain attack works, how to defend against them, how to mitigate that. The new NPM hardened defaults. Then we go into, different types of defending against different types of attacks like cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery, and lots of validation and sanitization examples. I did get a chance to shout out Archetype and Valibot, but I do use Zod in the demos because that's probably going to be the choice that people are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's pretty fun. Hopefully that goes well. I will include the link if it's available because I think technically, I'm not sure if it's published today as we record, but it should be available this week. So you'll hear from me when that's out. But that, what that means is that I'm free. Freedom. I'm work optional. Work optional until, I don't know, whenever I want to not be work optional. So I've switched gears now and I am fully focused on my office build in the backyard, my studio build.
Nice.
So anyway, you'll hear more about this every week as I work on this, but we're getting close. Hopefully this week, maybe I'll be ready to like figure out what kind of windows are available from my supplier. So I have to go to the showroom probably and talk to some salespeople to figure out what that's going to look like. But that'll be some of the first things I have to order because all the framing and stuff is dependent on what type of windows and doors I put on the thing. So, and that takes the longest to source. Like I can get lumber delivered within a week, but it might take 4 weeks to get windows. So that affects the timeline. So that's what I'm focused on. But I find it really fun. Like I've been working at night, like just sitting on the couch and on my MacBook on Chief Architect, just moving stuff around and adding stuff and trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been kicking around the idea of doing something similar in my backyard just because it's hard to do work in the house when the kids are here because there's noise, and then my daughter is like will not tolerate me in the office with the door shut. She'll be like, bum, 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 bum. Hey, Papa, Papa. So like, there's no hiding. So unless I physically like leave the space, like that's the only way I can get anything done. So, and then if we have more kids, like this room will probably be the next bedroom.
Right. Yep. That's a big consideration. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Let's move on to the news for the week of July 27th. Got some TypeScript news to start with.
We do. TypeScript has posted up their 7.1 iteration plan. And a couple like headliner things is what you expect, which is they're working on the compiler API. So they're stabilizing the language and compiler APIs. They're like, when can I have it? Answer is right now they have November 10th penciled in as the 7.1 release. Now,
Nice.
Buyer beware on that one, right? It's just, no one knows the future. But other things that they're looking at is there's some editor productivity stuff that they're doing. So they're going to replace the existing API integrations in VS Code with the new TypeScript 7 APIs that will exist in this iteration. So that'll likely speed up your dev workflow. They're doing some investigation into hover APIs in the LSP, multi-document highlighting in the LSP, and region-based diagnostics in the LSP. So this all like developer productivity changes, and then a whole bunch of nitty-gritty performance changes that a lot of them are already merged. And I think Jake Bailey was bleeding about all of the little like wins that they found while building a presentation deck. So they were like, oh, wait, oops, there's a little quick win here and there. So yeah, I think, 7.1, I think is going to be really cool because of like just the amount of speed and developer productivity gains that we're going to get now in editor because of all of the compiler API availability. So like your, TypeScript ESLint will be available, and AuxLint will probably, I imagine, will switch to that because I think AuxLint, if I'm not mistaken, is doing like a fork build of TypeScript Go in order to like get at the internals that aren't exposed. If I remember my history right, that there's no compiler API available, but AuxLint has inserted themselves into the compiler in order to get at it.
I think that's powered by TSConfig, which that's what it does. Yeah, it's kind of a workaround for now.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely some excitement here, and I'm bummed that I have to wait until November.
Well, you know what? It might coincide with my studio being dried in, so that'd be fun. Two good news at that time.
Speaking of TypeScript 7, a lot of folks on the Blue Skis have been commenting that TypeScript ESLint isn't working with TypeScript 7, and that does make sense, right? Because 7 does not have the compiler APIs that TypeScript ESLint depends on. So if this is you and you kind of missed that, there is some documentation on the blog post about how to live in like a dual world where you have TypeScript 6, which has equivalent functionality to 7 and has also all of the compiler APIs, the node compiler APIs that those tools depend on. So you're going to need to use TypeScript 6 for those features. And if you want this build speed up, you can use TypeScript 7 for everything else. So you can live in both worlds. You can have both installed at the same time.
Yeah. And probably that's the world that people are going to be living in at least until 7.1 stabilizes. But then we still have an amount of time after 7.1 stabilizes for it to get distributed throughout the ecosystem, right? Sort of the tidal wave effect. So have to wait until all the editor tools and stuff like that catch up to 7.1 and the compiler API, because those are going to need to be updated, and those will probably have major breaking changes too, in order to accommodate it. So still looking for a while, where we could do it in an entire switchover for all the dev tooling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're gonna straddle this 6-7 line for a while, and that joke is going to be not tired at all by the end. A little bit of news for you Emacs enjoyers out there: the LSP for TypeScript on Emacs has been fixed.
Nice.
So they ran into this exact same thing. The Go upgrade broke the old LSP, so now they've got that figured out. So if you are an Emacs enjoyer, go enjoy TypeScript in Emacs.
Very good. I've got something super exciting that is exactly right up my alley. This is called JsxCore, and it was announced by David Whitney, whom Eric knows in real life. Met at the conference, had some drinks together. So JsxCore, get this, it's a TSX/JSX view engine for ASP.NET Core. What? And let me just double click on this for a second. This makes ASP.NET Core a fully featured React and TypeScript developer experience, comparable and competitive with Node-based frameworks like Next.js, Remix, and Astro, but without the Node runtime or NPM dependency. I mean, this is literally the coolest thing ever, and it's exactly what I want. It's exactly what I want for Keep Track My Games, because I have a React frontend that's all just JSX, but I'm using ASP.NET Core. But I can't get SSR, right? It just doesn't work unless you embed Node as a runtime. This doesn't do that. If you remember, I had an experiment where I was using the Node foreign function interface, the ABI, and so .NET could call into Node using the C APIs natively, and so you could do SSR rendering and it would just execute the like React router SSR pipeline and stuff. This is not doing that. This is a view engine that can work with JSX and TSX. And then you import from special like prefix packages. They're like .NET : rendering or .NET : your namespace. And it can do code generation. So it can generate the types for like your models and stuff like that.
That's hot.
It's really, really cool. Yes. So I am excited about this. There's a few key features. It does have real .NET interop, so it says server rendering runs in process, so .NET objects exposed to a view are real objects, called synchronously with no bridge. NPM packages work. Install a package and import it. It resolves on the server and is served to the browser with no bundler and no import map to write. That's pretty sweet. And Preact ships inside the package, so if you just want to use Preact, you can do that. Otherwise, you can switch to React, and it does support that. And yeah, views are components. The same component renders on the server for the first paint and SEO, so it's server rendered, and in the browser for interactivity, or both, chosen per response. So similar to like Blazor web components, where you can render Blazor views on the server or on the client. But this is TypeScript in React or Preact. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is maybe so me personally, I probably wouldn't use Blazor on like a public facing site. Like, this feels
there's a little
like
bit too much overhead, yeah.
Right. Yeah, now they've made a lot of progress on Blazor and improving like the payload size. Just the problem is the .NET aspect. And now but you could server-side render, right? You could like pre-cook it, and that removes some of the complaint that I have. But this feels like the Blazor killer.
Yep, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's
awesome. Because
awesome.
I would use this on like a consumer website.
Well, yeah, that's why I want to look at it, because it's exactly does what I want. So we'll see. Yep.
Next up, Notion as code is in beta, and if you are a Notion enjoyer, you might want to go and define an entire workspace in TypeScript. So you can do team spaces, databases, custom agents, all of it, all through the API. And they have a way that you can version control this configuration. So this is like, I don't know, this is infrastructure as code, or this is like notes as code. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah.
But definitely check it out. It looks pretty interesting.
I think the interesting thing about this, and probably why they built it, is so that your agents can work with Notion and can just spin up workspaces, right? And they can just deal with it as TypeScript code. So if they want to define their own views or define special lists with different parameters and things like that, they don't have to go through the REST API. They can just declaratively write the JSON that gets translated into a Notion workspace. So it probably reduces a whole bunch of, agent work to do that.
Yeah, and for most things, I do like a desired state configuration style. So like kind of like the Terraform style of things. Like this is how I want the world to look. Go make it happen versus like, let me go and call commands.
Yes.
To go and, poke some state that lives somewhere into the right shape.
Exactly.
This I think is kind of a welcome thing, especially if you're living in the world where you have a complicated Notion setup. Or you use Notion to drive workflows. Now you can like version control it.
Exactly. Yep. That's cool. We have some Metaframework news. So just as Next.js had some security patches in the last episode, this week Nuxt had some security patches. So if you are using Nuxt, then you want to upgrade to Nuxt 4.5.1 or Nuxt 3.21.10. Those are the security patch releases for the 4x and 3x release lines. So there were some server-side remote code execution, and looks like there was some route rule authorization bypass, so some middleware bypass stuff. So again, yeah, I mean, frameworks, they do a lot of things, and I'm glad that they are being patched. So at least both Nuxt and Next now have sort of formal security release schedules, so that's kind of nice. But make sure you go update. Next up, we've talked about Elysia as a Node backend, or really like an HTTP backend framework for TypeScript. It's TypeScript first. It actually does work across runtimes, so not just Node, but Bun and Dino as well. They just released Elysia 2 beta, and it's codenamed Daydream, and they basically rewrote it from the ground up. So they improved the memory usage, bundle size, startup time, and then they also improved a lot of the quality of life sort of developer experience. So, for example, they use Typebox to do the schema validation, and they would ship it so that you had a dependency on Typebox even if you didn't use it. But now they fixed that so that you can use Typebox, part of the pun, out of the box, but you don't have to. You can switch your own validator in, and it won't bloat the bundle size. They also introduce ahead of time compilation, which is really cool. So now it can look and introspect all the routes in your app, and it can compile ahead of time. So that's pretty sweet. And of course, it is faster to start up, smaller bundle size, better memory usage. So a lot of cool stuff. So if you need to build like a Node backend or a server backend, and you're looking for a framework and you want to use TypeScript, Elysia is pretty cool.
Yeah, this really has a look of, if you recall, this has a look of kind of like Symfony, or I think the .NET equivalent is Sinatra. Very, very like fluent API. So you do like new Elysia or Elysia. I'm not sure how to say it. I'm so sorry. .get. Like this is my route. .get. This is my other get route. .ws for my WebSockets, and you just go. It's super ergonomic. And I think the best thing is that this release has a cute anime character as the hero image, which means that if you're a TypeScript and anime enjoyer, this might be for you.
Yeah, they've got a good handle on their brand, and good thing you call out like how to pronounce it, because it's spelled Elysia. So I would guess Elysia. But you're right, it could be Elysia or like Elysia or something like that as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm looking at their docs, and I don't see like a here's how to pronounce it. Maybe it's on their GitHub. Let's see. No, it doesn't say. Not sure. So we'll just go with that. Cool.
It's all good.
Yeah. And I guess another big change, if I didn't already emphasize it, was that originally it was built on top of Bun. So it was optimized for Bun, but not anymore. You can use it with multiple runtimes now. So if that was your blocker for like maybe checking it out to adopt it, no longer. So now you can go check it out.
Nice.
All right.
This next one is really interesting. Is Cloudflare posted a blog post. The workers RPC now works across Python and JavaScript. So in the past, you weren't able to RPC like across like language barriers, but now they're taking the workers RPC cross language. So normally getting programs in different languages to talk to each other is kind of complicated. You need to do like, serialization over the wire. You got to do all sorts of goofy stuff. But now you can call methods defined in a Python worker from a JavaScript worker and vice versa, just out of the box.
That's cool.
So that's freaking cool.
Yeah. I played a little bit with workers and like durable objects, and that's kind of similar to how that works. Like, because durable objects have RPC bindings, and you can just call them, and so it feels like regular code. Yeah, and actually, what's funny about RPC is that's something that I talk pretty extensively about in my course, because the downside of RPC is that it feels like you're just writing regular JavaScript code. But what you might not understand is that it's actually being translated to an HTTP call behind the scenes. So you have to treat it as if it was like a REST endpoint that you have to secure. Yeah, it blurs the boundary a little bit. What's nice about workers RPC is all internal though. It's like private networking, so it's not public code.
And here's some details that might like really light up your brain. The cross-language RPC calls will kind of behave like you would expect like method calls like in an idiomatic way to work with exceptions. Those exceptions are propagated from the call site in the language that you expect. This makes sense, but it might be a small caveat is you can only pass structured clonable types as parameters and return values, which makes sense, right? Because how do you represent a JavaScript object in Python and vice versa?
Yep.
Other than like you do have to do some kind of serialization. And then there's one caveat that JS dates get converted to a Python date time. So that might be a little nugget of, just keep in the back of your brain. The other thing that's interesting is the RPC to another worker typically does not cross a network boundary. So this is a near zero performance overhead compared to like running code in the same worker. So that's pretty slick. So
yeah, it's basically like communicating from sandbox to sandbox. So it doesn't necessarily have to involve any kind of network hops or anything.
Yeah, and it looks like the way that they're doing this is they're using the pyodide foreign function interface to translate between Python and JavaScript types. So that's pretty slick.
Cool beans. We have a new Chrome release, Chrome 151. So just some highlights from the release. We'll link to the blog post so you can read more about all this stuff. But capability element user media provides a declarative user-activated control for camera and microphone streams. So this is a transition from the original permission proposal. And so there already exists like a geolocation element, which provides a location object to your site. User media manages the entire flow for camera and microphone access. So it captures user intent, manages the browser prompt, and delivers the media stream object to the application. This shift eliminates the need for separate get user media calls, simplifies implementation, and ensures the browser has a trusted signal of the user's intent. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do like this. This is like that declarative way.
Exactly. If you've dealt with permission API stuff in JavaScript before, can be a bear. So this is really nice, where it's an actual HTML element. Next up, Chrome 151 expands the web performance timeline by introducing two new performance entry types, soft navigation and interaction contentful paint. These entries help developers track interaction-driven performance and latency in single-page applications, building on established core web vital metrics like largest contentful paint and interaction index paint. So this is something that we've talked about before, but previously it would only track hard navigations, so like across page loads, but in a SPA application, you've got router transitions and you'd have to treat that separately. But now Chrome natively supports being able to get web performance timings like between route navigations. So it considers those a soft navigation performance entry. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. This has been a huge problem for us in our observability because we can only track right now. We only track the initial page load, which
exactly
might be heinous and individual ones might be fast, or it might be vice versa. You might have a really well optimized bundle and it drops. So your LCP is really nice, but then maybe you are doing bad stuff on your SPA navigation, like you're blocking on network requests. So it's just really slow in between a click and navigation. So it's tough because a lot of jank can hide in that.
Yes. Previously at my last job, we tracked both those numbers separately, but we had to do it manually. So you could use WebKit custom timings or whatever to kind of report that. That's what we did. But we could tell okay, here's our hard navigation performance and here's our soft nav performance. But you still couldn't get web vital metrics related to SPA navigations. And Chrome is building that out. So that's really nice.
Yeah. More telemetry is more better.
Exactly. We have a security corner, couple PSAs. Of course, there's an NPM ongoing supply chain attack. This one affects packages in the keyv and cacheable namespaces. And these are highly used packages. What does it say what the impact is currently?
It looks like credential theft for cloud credentials. So they're looking for all of your AWS, GCP, Azure keys, looking for HashiCorp Vault, Kubernetes, account tokens, GitHub Actions tokens, NPM tokens. It self-propagates through other NPM packages with the same hook. It just Shai Hulud, it republishes itself through NPM OIDC trusted publishing. So trusted publishing doesn't save you. necessarily with these attacks. They just have adapted and steal the OIDC publishing tokens in your CI to publish themselves to other places. And then they obviously they exfil all of this information to, their whatever their command and control is.
Yes.
Which is a huge bummer. So that's what's interesting is that there was a staged commit here.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Evidence indicates the maintainer account, Jared Ray, was compromised and used to publish across 2 package families. So that's the thing is like if your maintainer account is compromised, stage publishing and trusted publishing don't protect you, right? Like you can,
That's right.
As a malicious actor, once you have control of a maintainer's account, you can just publish whatever you want and approve it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real bummer. This security is such a tough thing. It's an asymmetric battle. Like as maintainers, as like operators of like dependent upon software, you have like a large attack surface to protect, and attackers just have to find the one gap in the armor.
Yes, exactly.
Real bummer.
We do have some more security releases. Node.js has their July security release, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but you should update your nodes, your runtimes. So I did that on my machine this week. So make sure whatever version manager you're using the latest up-to-date LTS versions that are patched, because you don't want your dev machines to be out of date, and you for sure don't want your production machines to be out of date.
Yep.
Moving on to some library watches. We got some cool stuff.
Yeah, the first thing we've got is something called semver-ts. And you're like, hold the phone. We already know semver. But this is interesting. This library, or I guess this document, defines a specification of semantic versioning with regards to TypeScript types. So it's really easy to make type breaking changes. Like it's extremely easy. And kind of the ethos of this document is that the rule is, big picture, no new red squiggles rule. So they give you kind of a way to, a rubric to understand like, okay, what is a breaking change? What isn't? How do you take this and run with your TypeScript types so that you either A, know that you're breaking someone and you can do the semver thing, or you're not breaking someone and you can do the right semver thing.
Nice.
So this is a great document that I'm going to I think I'm just going to incorporate into our contributing. It has a lot of strategies for and things that you should look out for when messing with types so that you're not breaking people on accidentally. Very cool. It's recommended read. Definitely check it out. They have a big list of tooling that you can take a look at where you can do like DTSLint, TSD, or expect type. And then we talked about last week, API extractor that could do contract checking as well. So these are all great tools for making sure your TypeScript doesn't break people.
Yeah, that's cool.
In the wild world of runtimes and compilers, there is a brand new JS2 WASM compiler that can compile JavaScript/TypeScript to WebAssembly. It's a total ahead of time compiler. So this reads like it's in the same flavor as Porphyr. And as of right now, they're passing about 70% of the JavaScript test 262, which is the JavaScript conformance standard test. Like, do you have JavaScript implemented? But this is pretty wild. You can now compile JavaScript to WebAssembly. So, the thing that people were talking about would never happen is now happening. And one thing to take a look at in their page is that this is an early stage research, prototype, and technical demo. It is not production ready compiler. Expect rough edges.
I'm almost certain. I believe it's been done by AI agents working on it, because it mentions that as
most
one of
certainly yes.
Yeah, but it's developed from Loopdive, which I believe is a startup. So yeah, this will be interesting to kind of see.
Yeah, I think this, WASM is a really interesting target too, because it just really opens up your possible deployment targets easily. So landing in WASM is just really neat.
Yeah, if you open up their live roadmap, you can literally see what's being worked on. So it looks like there are 39 issues in progress and over 319 issues still to go. But it looks like it's taken about 22 weeks so far It's already, the AI team has already completed 3,000 work items, or about, it's like 2,900. But there are 500 ready, and 71.7% of the tests pass. So still a ways to go, but pretty interesting. Good luck, huh?
Good luck.
It's that last 10% that's gonna probably involve some humans.
Yeah, I think the tough thing with AOTing JavaScript is there are some things that JavaScript does that are just not really a thing you can know ahead of time unless you decide that certain things are not allowed.
Right.
So this, I think, was a thing that Porphyr ran into, where they're like, okay, we're not going to support some of the insane things you can do with JavaScript in order to do the ahead of time compiling. So I think you might have to sacrifice some level of, JavaScriptness in order to do a ahead of time compilation in a sane way.
Yep.
Next up on the list is something extremely wild, and that is from Tencent. They have published a repo called PeurTS, and that is most certainly not how you pronounce it. They have a Mandarin Chinese here. Let me listen to the Mandarin Chinese. I'm not even going to attempt that. So it's most certainly not PeurTS, but I'm going to call it PeurTS because that seems a little easier for me. But this lets you write a game in Unity or Unreal Engine with TypeScript, which is cuckoo banana pants awesome. So what is it? It's a multi-language scripting solution for Unity, Unreal, and .NET. You can use the language that your team is most familiar in. So in TypeScript might be the one. And it's wild to me that this works across like Unity, Unreal. Like, it's so cool. Like, definitely check this out. This is so cool. This is so cool. Like, I need to like hack on this a little bit. But Tencent does a lot of stuff in .NET, so this just feels like a natural like thing that they would do. And
nice.
they drop like really really wild stuff all the time. And they have the Nougat releases. They have Lua, Python, Node.js, and QuickJS releases as well.
Sweet.
Super cool. Next up, I thought was really interesting, and this is a Microsoft library on the library watch, which is dynwinrt. And this is a TypeScript library that allows you to mess with any Windows runtime API from JavaScript or TypeScript without writing a native add-on. So if you will find yourself writing a Windows app and you need to mess with Windows in some wild way, this might be a thing to look at. You can call any Windows runtime API, so you can do banana stuff. I don't know, like you can make some really annoying malware with this, or you can make some really interesting applications. I don't know.
That's cool.
The world's your oyster. They also support the classic COM bindings, which if you are like a hardcore old school Windows programmer, you'll know how to use. I don't, but yeah, this is wild. You can do it in TypeScript now.
I don't think I've had to deal with COM for like 10 years.
Yeah, I think the last time I dealt with COM was when I was working at a previous company, and they had, like at the time you must use Internet Explorer, right? It was like the corporate mandate, right? So they had us build a Internet Explorer extension. And the way that those worked is you hook in via COM. And I remember doing that.
Yep.
That was so wild.
The cool thing that I did once that nobody cares about anymore, but was cool at the time, was that I wrote a Visual Studio, was it 2018? Maybe a 2018 extension that did not use Windows Forms. It actually used WPF to build the extension. And I had to use COM in order to like call those APIs to like render the WPF. And if you are not familiar with .NET, Windows Presentation Framework, WPF, was like a way better renderer to like do stuff. It used XAML behind the scenes. It was way more flexible than Windows Forms, which are like sort of that classic, boring Visual Basic style interface, right? So I was able to build a really cool Visual Studio extension using that. So that's what I used COM for.
Nice.
Yeah.
This next one on the library watch is a library called SYT, and I saw this on the Blue Skis from Mamadou. I'm hoping I got your name right, but this is a typesafe builder for TypeScript, TSConfig.jsons. So it has Zod validation, mergeable path aliases, type convenience methods like .strict, .setTarget, with ESM and common JS support. So this is great, especially if you're like struggle to know what all of the, TSConfig thingies can be. Like this just gives you a nice fluent builder that is type checked. So you can type check your type checker.
Yeah.
You can type check your TSConfig while you write your types.
That's pretty fun.
I heard you like types, so we can write types while we write types.
Yep, that's pretty cool. TSConfig builder. Next up on Library Watch, I saw this one featured if you want to do push notifications in the browser. First of all, you know that you can do that, right? I feel like it's a feature that is not as well known, but it's something that I've looked at for my own app. But to do it across browsers is a little janky. So this is a library called rm-pushnotify, and it is a cross-browser library that simplifies sending browser push notifications and service workers. So they've got some cool interactive playgrounds here, and it uses a really nice, basically singleton design pattern. So you just call it as one instance, no matter where you are. So you can say .notify or whatever you want. They have different service workers that it comes built in with. So it'll tell you where to put it if you have an Angular app, a React app, or vanilla JavaScript. And you basically import push notification, and then you have to request permission at some point because the user has to allow you to send push notifications. But once they do, then you can just say await push notification.show notification, bam. And you can have different buttons on your notification. They can call different actions, and you can do different things in your app depending on those actions. So it's really neat. I want to add it as a way as another channel for notifications, because right now I only send emails, but I think it would be cool if you have my app installed as a progressive web app on your phone. It'll show up as a regular push notification there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're on the desktop, it also shows as a push notification on your desktop. So the web is really, really cool. If you didn't know that you could do push notifications, you can.
Use sparingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Best, what is it? It's like truffle. It's best in small amount.
That's right. Yes.
Overwhelming flavor. Next up on the library watch is from Bluesky user Wuju, I'm going to say. And it's Mazely. And this is a brand new TypeScript library for maze generation, solving, and editing. So for my game devs out there in TypeScript and that you have a maze related need, check it out. This is so cool. I think my daughter would love this. I just would generate mazes for her to play with.
Right.
So This is so cool.
Now I think you just need to use this library and have Claude build you a one-page app where it just prints the maze and then has a print style sheet for 8.5 by 11, and you can just randomly generate printing pages with mazes on them.
This is so cool. And they even have a little playground, studio.mazely.dev, and you can watch it generate stuff. So it's also kind of soothing to watch. I don't know. It's I can just stare at it forever. This is so neat.
That's really cool.
This last one on Library Watch comes from Bluesky user j.holmes.code, and they have ported over a project to TypeScript, which is inclusive color. And you can find this at 32bitkid on GitHub, 32bitkid/4bitlabs.inclusiveColorSpace. And it's a inclusive human skin colored based color space. So you can go take a look at this, and you can get different skin tones that you might need for whatever you're doing that are all over the spectrum.
That's really cool. Again, this looks like it would be super useful for procedural generation. You're trying to build NPCs and you want realistic, inclusive skin colors. Bam, here you go.
Mm-hmm. The original project is from tonyalexander.github.io/inclusiveColorSpace. So you can go take a look at that article as well. And they go through how the math of it works and the methodology of it works, which is very interesting.
Love it. Let's move on to some community highlights. We got a cool tool for you. It's called Are the Types Wrong? And we might have mentioned it before. It feels familiar to me. I feel like I've seen this.
Yeah, I think we have mentioned this before, but it might be worth saying again.
Yeah, I mean, you put in an npm package in a version, you click check, and it checks the output to see whether or not it has the right TypeScript types declared. And it'll also tell you Is it coming from CommonJS? And then whether or not it supports like a bundler. And so, for example, I'm looking at one that says like no types. Import resolved to JavaScript files, but no type declarations were found. Unexpected module syntax. Syntax detected in the module is incompatible with the module kind according to the package JSON or file extension. So it's like a little checker that checks to see if an NPM package declares and publishes its types properly.
Yeah, this is super cool. I have some homework for myself.
Nice.
Yeah, John Reilly published a blog post about migrating the TS loader to TypeScript, TypeScript 7 with AI. So they talk about their process about how they migrated the TS loader to the latest version of TypeScript. Well, one of the biggest, things that they mention here is that 7.1 hasn't been released, and it won't be until November before they can ship a new version of the TS loader that has this API. But they were able to go through, and their, verdict here is the code wasn't too bad. They're planning some more like proper vetting and validation, but like as an experiment, they said that this was a pretty good stab. And you can go take a look at that PR. We'll list it in the show notes, and that's at TypeStrong TS Loader pull request 1704. It's marked as a draft PR. But if you're curious about how they went about this and, working against a like alpha, like not yet released API, you can go take a look at that as well.
Yeah. And shout out to John, who is going through like cancer treatment. And I've been following over the past year or so, and he just had some really good news regarding his treatment and stuff. So congrats, John. Hope you're feeling better. Next up from Jake Worth, he is learning TypeScript and taking daily notes, which you can subscribe to at typenotes.io. And so, for example, he just shared one recently on how to get a REPL, a TypeScript REPL with TSX. So if you've used the TSX tool before, all you have to do is do npx space TSX, and then you get your TypeScript REPL. And it evaluates both JavaScript and TypeScript. And if you're not familiar with TSX, we've mentioned it before because this used to be one of the only ways to run TypeScript in Node. But TSX stands for TypeScript Execute, which is the easiest way to run TypeScript in Node.js, or maybe was the easiest way. Now I feel like the easiest way is to just use native Node. But I think TSX is still used quite a bit. So if you have a version of Node.js that doesn't support type stripping, you can use TSX to execute TypeScript scripts. Next up, from Tabularis, which is like a database visualization engine, they have a pretty detailed blog post on an engineering blog post where they used Claude to port some of their Rust parsing over to TypeScript in order to rewrite their visual explain tool. Because the visual explain tool was mostly written in TypeScript, but then had to use Rust to parse the query statements in order to generate the plan. And basically they realized that they didn't have to do that. They could just port it all to TypeScript so that it would run a bit faster and simplify the front-end architecture. So just a content warning, this blog post is definitely written with the help of AI, but Andrey wrote it. So it is a pretty detailed, nice engineering blog post with a lot of cool visuals to help you understand like what they did. So it is a pretty good blog post. So you can go check that out. Next up, from Jake Archibald, who works on the Firefox DevRel team. He's got a nice blog post that we can all learn from called Fixing My Tooltip Accessibility Mistake. And so if you've used like aria described by before, I've never heard of like this popover hint attribute, but that's like a new accessibility attribute. And so you can like describe buttons with like a popover and it can be accessible. And so the screen reader can announce it out loud properly. And so Jake has some good stuff of like, he was trying to use like different aria labels, but because it has no accessible name, aria described by provides additional information. So it's not a replacement for the accessible name. So you have to use both aria labeled by and then aria described by as well. So it's pretty cool. So if you need to deal with accessibility, this is super helpful.
Yeah. Accessibility is such a tough field because it's hard to put yourself in that place if you're not differently abled. So it really does take, I think, like if you're going to be good about it, you really do need to get people that are in that situation, that work in that way, every day to vet whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Which is tough, but that's like the most robust way to do it, I think.
Yes. So basically the takeaway is always ensure interactive elements have an accessible name. And so in this case, it wasn't just enough to use aria described by. You also needed an aria labeled by and a specific element to be labeled by for the screen reader to get it correct. So good stuff.
Yep. I am going to put that nugget in the back of my brain.
Next up, there's a book recommendation. This one is called Debugging TypeScript Applications, Build Web Apps That Don't Break. And it's by Andrey Ozornin. And it's from the Pragmatic Bookshelf. And it looks like it's about $27 US. But this is pretty cool. You can go and check out some of the examples, the excerpts. But for example, it covers like printing and interpreting errors, setting guardrails with throw and catch, prioritizing bugs, finding the root cause, designing software that doesn't break, so writing clean code, for example, following the data flow and debugging asynchronous operations, making your code debuggable. So it goes into like basically how do you debug web apps and specifically with TypeScript. So it goes into like here's how to use the Chrome debug tools to like debug your app. In addition to like how can I write more safer code.
Next on our community highlights, I have a Bluesky post by David Charest. The TSAST viewer now supports TypeScript 7.
Ooh.
And if you don't know, David was previously at Dino, is working on TSMorph, dprint, and more. But in this one in particular, you can go and look at the abstract syntax tree for your TypeScript code in TypeScript 7. So if that is a thing that you're interested in, go take a look. And even Jake Bailey himself is talking about this one. So definitely a resource if you are in the AST zone.
Yep. And David said basically it works because he was able to do a WASM build of the TypeScript Go repo. Pretty neat. We've got Bleed of the Week. You want to hit us with it?
Yes. So this is from Bluesky user Kiernan.io, and it's the Oppenheimer picture of Cillian Murphy, like looking a little spacey, a little dejected. And the bleat says, reviewing TypeScript PRs that are bloated by LLM slop, hundreds of lines of comments that no one will read, all just to send different value to a backend API.
Yeah.
What have I done?
Uh-huh.
That last part was my editorial.
Yes. I've run into that before. I have to like tell the agent to shut up. Like, don't stop writing comments. Like, I don't write comments in my code unless there's some sort of like weird decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't write comments to explain the code. And so I've constantly had to add instructions to be like, stop writing comments.
Yeah. I think my rule is comments are only necessary for like, I have a fix me that is referencing like a GitHub issue or a Jira ticket or whatever. Like we have work, it's planned. Here it is. Don't just do a fix me without a link to a thing. Like a fix me without a plan is a useless. It's a hope. It's a dream.
Exactly.
And then the other is something complex. Like a lot of times I'll have like math in there that is just opaque, right? And so I'll need to explain what the math is doing and why it's doing what it's doing.
Yep.
So like, and that's maybe a unique position that I find myself in doing game development, but I'm like, okay, this is the reason why this looks like this. And this is the formula that we're using. And this is the, maybe some additional resources that you can read or like a blog post or documentation. But yeah, so those are instances where reading the code literally helps you none. So, so like comments are otherwise just damn dirty lies.
That's right. Got some cool links?
I do. And this is more from the Software Should Work conference, which they're trickling out videos right now. And this video really like aligned with my brain. And that's reliability lessons from SQLite by Richard Hipp. So if you don't know, Richard Hipp is probably has the software that is deployed the most of any human on Earth. So SQLite you probably are running like 4 SQLite databases at this moment. So, because it's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's everywhere. And it really resonates in here. It really resonates how software development has never been the bottleneck. Writing code has never been the bottleneck. The bottleneck has been testing and testing well. And he goes like deep on like how they make sure that SQLite is reliable and bug-free as you as flawed humans can make something. And I'd argue like there's a lot of things we can apply to our software dev that are testing related that I'm certainly not doing, that Richard is doing. It was very thought-provoking. And I think in this new day and age, like, yeah, testing is going to be the bottleneck, and it's always going to be.
That's right. Yep. And we've already learned time and time again that agents can port code, but the amount of tests that you have and the spec that's written is basically the determination of how well it goes. And so like all these organizations that are like, oh, we're going to port our legacy .NET code to ASP.NET Core are going to have a bad time because those legacy code bases did not have good tests. So there's no spec to work against, right? The only reason that I can have an agent help me with my port is because I have almost 1,000 tests that cover all the service backend logic. And I have a whole bunch of end-to-end tests that cover all the browser and how the pages should work and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is just, just to like add on to that thought real quick, is just that AI is it's not gonna save you. Like you really do need to put thought and engineering effort into your tests. Like the tests are your signal. Like, and signal can only be generated from the outside. Agents are only capable of maintaining entropy or increasing it. So like that, I'm gonna coin Eric's law. Agents are only capable of maintaining or increasing entropy. That's Eric's new software law. You heard it here first. So
that's right. Speaking of that, this is not on my cool links, but it is a cool link. So it's a bonus. Kent C. Dodds, whom we've interviewed, recently had a YouTube video, why I delete my tests. And it is exactly that. It's that he has agents write tests, but because they're so overeager, they write a whole bunch of noisy tests that don't really test anything. And so he has a daily PR that runs, automation that runs, that has the agents delete their own tests that are like noisy and useless. And so it's kind of funny because the title of his video is like, why I delete my tests every night. And I thought that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
My cool link is not code related at all, but me and Cassie have been watching a new show called Nirvana, the band, the show. And I think it's becoming a little bit more popular. It came out a few years ago, but it's been since released on Hulu. So I think more people are watching it. But the show is hilarious. It's basically just two best friends who have a band called Nirvana, the band. And they're based in Toronto. They play that up quite a bit. And they're trying to get their band into this music club. But it's not like going to like LA and playing like a famous club. This is like just some random club in downtown Toronto that they're trying to get into, the Reilly. And every single episode is about some harebrained plan to try to get themselves into the Reilly. And of course, they mess it up all the time. They're unlikable, kind of, but sort of likable in that they're losers or that they're funny. But the one I was telling you about is where they go to a children's hospital and kidnap a kid so that he can make a wish, because he's part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation that they play at the Reilly. And it turns out at the very end that this kid was not part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and that he had diabetes, and feeding him funnel cakes at the theme park caused him to collapse. And then the funniest part of the show is that some of the bits are done in real life. And so they're in public doing their bits. And so this bit was them carrying this 10-year-old kid, to the hospital by his hands and his feet. And it's like a family watching aghast as these two adults are carrying this kid to the entrance of the emergency room and just leaving him there because, of course, the kid is part of the bit. But anyway, it's good stuff. And then the other one I was telling you about is where they sneak a film into the real Sundance Film Festival. But they had some ins in there. I think Kevin Smith is one of the producers. So they had like Kevin Smith on camera and like in the show. Mm-hmm. And he was playing along. So it's always like, you're wondering like who's in on it and who's not in on it. You know what I mean? So it's good stuff.
Yeah. And guerrilla comedy.
Yeah. They've also got a movie. So after we're done with the show, it's only 2 seasons. We want to watch the movie. And I guess they do have a season 3 teed up too. So we're excited about that. Yeah. Highly recommend if you're into that weird sort of cringe comedy type of stuff. Well, it's time for the Minnesota long goodbye. What are your thoughts?
I think my thoughts are I'm sick of LLM news.
Well, luckily we didn't have any really today, which is kind of a nice breather. But yeah, I agree. Like we don't need to cover like all the new model releases or things like that. Like people can go check that out if they're interested in it.
It's very samey, and I feel like there's not a whole lot of there's really not a whole lot of there, honestly.
No,
I mean,
I want to hear.
Maybe there is.
I want to hear. I'll tell you what I want to hear. I want to hear about what people are using the tools for that are like actually helping them. I think use cases are more interesting. Like here's how for example, the Tabularis thing was interesting because they talked about how they used Claude Opus 5 to port the Rust parsers and things like that. And that's kind of the thing. Those are the kind of use cases I want to hear about. Like, here's where we found success using them. Here's where they fell apart, that kind of thing. I mean, we were talking about this in our group thread, but like one use case, coders specifically, software developers, could use LLMs more for that they don't currently is in understanding code or like understanding patterns and things like that, like as a coach sort of mechanism rather than writing code itself. And I was saying that it's funny because that is the exact way that I use Claude when it comes to DIY building, because Claude literally cannot pick up a hammer and build stuff. But what it can do is it can pretty well explain building codes and how they might relate to what I'm doing and in my specific zone, in my specific like zoning regulations. You know what I mean? So for example, we were going through like the height cap of an accessory building needs to be measured from the highest point to the lowest part of the grade.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yep. And so that dictates my design heavily because my office is raised off the ground because it's on grade and I have a retaining wall. So in the software, I need to make sure that the roof pitch is enough where the rain will come off and the snow will come off, which is you need a certain amount of pitch. But it also dictates like the material that I use. Like shingles require a certain pitch that I'm not going to be able to get because it's going to be too high. So I have to use a rubber membrane, but that has like a minimum pitch, right? So there's a balancing point. And I think I got it to within 13 foot, 6 inch, and the height is 15 feet. It can't be more than 15 feet. So I think it's going to give me at least like 1.5 feet of margin, which is good because I won't really know until I physically build the thing and like can measure from the top of the roof. So that kind of stuff is like helpful for Claude to like call out and be like, hey, make sure you're thinking about this. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Or other things like that, like related to electrical code or things like that.
Yeah. I feel like that really aligns where like it's useful as like a gut check. Like I found the code review stuff to be extremely useful because it'll point out things I didn't think about or dumb mistakes. Like it's good at that. But the things where I found it to be problematic is feature development. Like I've found it to really not be good at feature development.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of that is just one, depending on what you're doing, you might not be doing text boxes over data. You might not be doing line of business stuff. And even if you are, it doesn't know your business rules or your domain very well. So it'll do stupid stuff, you know, and fool me once, right? I've been fooled several times. So like now I just find myself for new features just writing it myself because it's just faster than iterating on it being wrong. There's another thing too that I kind of resonated with, it somewhat related to this, and that's I'm kind of sick of the new, related to being sick of the news, and that's this like demo, like look at this crazy thing that I one shot, and there's a really good video from Primogen about stop being tricked by this demo stuff because it can only recreate stuff that already exists. And there's this quote from the head of the company that does GTA. And he's like, hits are by their definition unexpected. So you can always clone a game. Like we've been able to clone games for years. Like all the tools existed, like clone GTA, like before LLMs. But it wouldn't be GTA.
Well,
it'd
like Saints Row is basically a clone of GTA, but it doesn't take itself seriously at all, right? So Saints Row was fun because you could literally do crazy stuff, and it sort of made fun of itself. But it was a clone of GTA, but it's not the same as GTA,
Yeah, you're not gonna have a hit it's hit, like the quote is like, hits are unexpected, and by their nature are unexpected. So you still need to know how to do game design and actually build a good game.
Exactly.
So,
or like even in my case, in an entirely separate domain, like Claude is not very good at like interior design, right? Because that's a whole vibe thing, right? The best that it can do is like sort of space planning of like trying to figure out things I should watch for. Like, oh, should this door have an in swing or an out swing, or should it be left-handed or right-handed, and things like that. But it's not going to be like, oh, this looks good. It can sort of give some ideas, but I'm the one that has the taste, right? And it's my office, so I'm not using it to like review pictures of like what I want. I'm just trying to figure out what I want as a designer, as my goals, like for the space, and then it's up to me to figure out like, do the materials work together? Do the tones work together? Does the space feel cramped? Does it feel light and airy? That kind of thing. So I'm not using Claude to do that type of stuff. But this morning, I used it to help me try to figure out how to calculate the measurements for my retaining wall using my frame platform as a reference point. And so sure enough, it was like, well, you could do triangulation or you could do offsets. And here are the two methods you could do. I was like, well, triangulation seems pretty good. That's what I did. And I translated those measurements into the software today. So like it can help me with stuff in the field, of like, well, I have these ideas. I'm not sure which one is, the way to go. And it can give me some options, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's a good place to end it, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to typescript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at kamranigus.com, and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.